This is Todd Westra, and I am so glad that you're here today. Have you guys ever considered your exit strategy? I know it's a big loaded question, but how many of you who are founders out there have really taken time to think about, I'm growing and scaling, but to what end? To what end are you growing and scaling? That is a big question. It's a loaded question. There's a lot of paths you can take. Are you gonna sell? Are you gonna go acquire more business as part of your growth strategy and then sell? Are you gonna launch some new products and then sell? Or are you not gonna sell? Are you gonna hand the business off to your kids or your grandkids or your favorite employee? You know, there's so many different ways to exit. But today's guest is a specialist in the mergers and acquisitions side of things. He has grown a business that ironically was launched via his helping people acquire new dental practices. He then grew his own dental practice business with multiple locations and hundreds of employees, and it has been exciting to interview him today on the show. You're going to love our guest. His name is John McNabb. He's got a whole ton of experience, and if you have thought about your exit strategy and you've been wondering what to ask an M&A specialist, this may be the episode for you. M&A specialists have so much experience, way more than the average business owner, because they are constantly on the move, buying or selling or both, and helping founders get the best deal and understand the true value of their business. John's going to explain some awesome variables that he looks at that may help you understand the true valuation of your business. Take your heart, set it on the table, and start looking at the logistics of what other people would value your business as, not so much about what your own heart tells you the value of your business really is. So enjoy the episode. If you know someone that needs to hear this episode, don't hesitate to click on the share and share a link to this episode to those in your network. Have a great one and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Growth and Scaling Podcast. This is your host, Todd Westra, and I am so glad you're here today because we are going to interview an amazing founder or executive who is going to share with us their decisions that they made that exploded their growth. So if you need some inspiration, you want to hear how other businesses are doing it, this is a place to be, and we are glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to the podcast today. We are so excited to talk to John McNabb, who is an amazing facilitator of mergers and acquisitions in a really specific niche. And so we're gonna dive in and get real comfortable with who he is, what he does. John, lead us in. Who are you, and what kind of people do you help?
Well, thank you, Todd, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. Who am I? Well, that's an interesting question. I was at one point in my career a banker. I've been a venture capitalist. I've done private wealth management. I've funded startups, which is really my passion. I love building and creating things. And for the last decade or so, I've been in the dental healthcare world. I
Awesome.
got into dental healthcare a bit by accident in 2010, and I spent the first 4 years as a consultant. I was advising dentists on buying dental clinics.
Awesome.
And then after doing that for several years, I thought to myself, if I can do this well for other people, I should be able to do it well for myself. And I moved into owning and operating dental clinics directly in 2014 through my company, Canadent Corporation. So we now have a group of dental clinics in the province of Ontario in Canada.
Awesome.
I wouldn't call us a dental service organization, a DSO. We're not big in that sense, but we're certainly a dental group. Let's call us that.
I got it. That is fascinating. And I love how you transitioned from helping other people buy the practices and then becoming an owner yourself. How did that come about? I mean, were you a little skittish at first? Did you feel like you were I don't know, how did that happen? That's kind of an interesting transition.
Well, I was nervous, but there were two things that helped. First of all, the business side of dental healthcare is pretty straightforward. It's not a complex industry. Right. And in the 4 years that I had been a consultant, I really had come to understand the business part of dentistry very well. So I was confident in managing the business side of a dentistry practice and in understanding what represented good value if I was out looking to buy something. So that was a great help.
Right.
The other part of it was general M&A skills. And from the earliest days of my banking career, I was a specialist in doing corporate turnarounds of companies that needed to be restructured because they were in financial or operational trouble. And a lot of that work is essentially M&A type work. So I've had decades of general M&A experience, and just it doesn't matter how many zeros there are on the end of an M&A deal. A deal is a deal.
I love that. Now we're talking to a group of people. A lot of the listeners on here are in that process of growth and scaling. And when they talk to an M&A person, they immediately get a little bit nervous sometimes. They think, oh, they're probably going to look at me, and when they're talking to me, they're going to read into my business and feel like they're looking at something I'm not seeing. What are the things that an M&A guy, especially a buyer, someone who's on the buy side, what kind of things do you look at when you are approaching a deal or you're talking to a small business owner or even a medium-sized business owner and they really aren't clear about their exit?
The first thing that one has to overcome, if you're talking to an owner, a prospective seller, is the owner's innate view that their business is worth a lot more than it probably really is.
It's the emotional part of it, right?
That's exactly what it is. It's their baby. They've spent however many years of their life and of their career building this, creating it, trying to make it the best that they could. And so to them, value has a different meaning than it does to the rest of the outside world. For the seller, value has two components. It has an objective component, which is whatever the revenue is, whatever the assets are, all of those tangible, measurable, concrete things. But then there's this big psychological part of value that says, this is mine. And because it's mine and I built it, it's worth more than just the sum of the parts. So there's an educational experience that one has to go through with an owner when you're prepping them to sell or when you're initially discussing with them wanting to buy their business. You have to get over the emotional thing and you have to get down to the practical aspects of the business.
Right. Now you, being the type of, having the background that you have versus a lot of people watching this who may be thinking, I don't even know what the end of my business is going to look like. You know, to your point, a lot of people get so emotionally attached to their business that they never envision life without it. It is their child. It is their baby. It's their heart and soul. How do you get them to start thinking the right way? What kind of things give my business the objective value that you mentioned, the assets and the revenue and things like that, that are going to give it the value that they perceive in their own heart?
It's difficult sometimes to separate the emotional and the psychological side of it from the pure business part.
Right.
But the kinds of benchmarks that an owner should look at and be thinking about are, first of all, comparable sales in their own industry. If they can find information about other businesses, find out what they have sold for, try to compare in terms of size. Are they good comparables? There are certain benchmarks for valuation which are pretty commonly applied. In different industries, they use different benchmarks, but for example, in the dental world or in healthcare, you're looking primarily at two or three metrics. One would be revenue and some multiple of revenue as a way of determining value.
Right.
Another one would be an acronym called EBITDA, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That's sort of a derivative of the idea of revenue because it strips out some of the things that can distort the value if you just base it on revenue, or if you base it on the other and the third most common one, which is earnings or net profit. The most common one nowadays is EBITDA. That's a bit of a strange concept, though, for a lot of business owners because they don't think in those terms. And so there's a little bit of a learning curve to get up there about what EBITDA is and how to apply it in your business.
Well, and as you talk to people that are considering an exit and you're looking at potentially an acquisition or maybe guiding them on their path to do this, what is your favorite thing? Like, there's I've heard both from my own businesses and watching other people do their exits. I remember the first time I talked about an exit, the advisor came to me and said, okay, here are the things that are going to increase the value that are going to add this much multiple to your sale, to your exit. Focus the next 2 years on these couple of things and you're going to have a much greater exit. What do you feel like those two key things are, in your opinion?
Number one is always the top line. That's revenue. Don't let revenue opportunities go unchecked. Always try to maximize revenue.
Right.
But, and I say but, there's an important but. Don't do it purely for the sake of increasing revenue. Profitability, which is reflected in the EBITDA metric, is always a key concern. This is the long-standing issue of growth for the sake of growth, which is pure top-line revenue expansion, or growth for profitability.
Right.
You would want to try to strike a blend of the two. So you want to be growing your revenue, but you want to be managing the expense side of your business so that your earnings and your profitability is always increasing in line with your revenue.
So smart. That is awesome advice. Now, as you see people who are in this exit mode or even just in the growth and scaling mode of their companies, what do you see as the biggest challenge? I mean, they all kind of get excited when they start talking about their revenue or their product or how they serve their clients. But what do you tend to see as a commonality in their set of challenges that they face in trying to not only grow and scale, but make it something that is acquirable?
One of the things that I run into frequently is that an owner will mold the business to suit their own preferences, their own vision of what the business should be. It's like buying a house and then decorating every room in dark purple because that's your favorite color. That may be your favorite color and it may make the house your favorite house, but the rest of the world doesn't necessarily see it that way. So you need to build your business in a way that is going to be appealing and attractive to other entrepreneurs in the same space who may want to buy it.
Right.
So, for example, in the dental world, and here I'm going to use an example for people who are watching this from the dental healthcare sector, building a specialty office, a periodontal office, or an endodontic office that specializes in root canals will always have a lower valuation than a general practice. Why? Well, it comes back to the question of scalable, low-risk revenue. That's the key to valuation, to getting a good valuation on your business. Why does a general dental office have that? Because you're not reliant on referrals from other dentists, which a specialist is.
Makes sense.
So the specialist business has a potential large downside if that referral network falls apart. You have many, many more small-scale revenue data points. If somebody comes in to have their teeth cleaned, that's $150. And you do that literally thousands of times a year in your dental practice.
Yes.
Whereas the endodontist who does root canals has one revenue point at $1,200, and he only does that once a year for a client. So if that client doesn't come in the front door, he loses $1,200 of revenue. In the general dental practice, if the client doesn't come in the door this week, the worst that happens is you lose $150 because they didn't have their teeth cleaned. So that's scalable revenue and replicable revenue. You need to have many, many more small value revenue points rather than a few larger scale revenue points.
Interesting. Now, what advice? How does that translate to other industries, or does it? Or how do you see? You know, you've operated in different verticals before. How do you see that changing or reflecting across the board in other industries?
It operates in almost every industry. The concept of replicable, scalable revenue is almost universal in terms of valuation for businesses. It operates whether you're producing, let's take an example. I've done work in the electronics industry. If you're producing quantum computers, and this is, I was in the computer industry on the financing side of it for several years. So this is a real life example. One of my clients produced quantum computers. Now these things sell for immense amounts of money, millions of dollars each. But if you have a product that isn't attractive in the market for competitive reasons, and you lose one or two sales, you're losing tens of millions of dollars through just one or two sales that you missed.
Right.
If you're selling, conversely, if you're producing and selling laptop computers or desktop computers of whatever sort that sell for a couple of $1,000s each, and you miss a couple of sales, all you've missed is a couple of $1,000s of revenue. And the game goes on. So the point is, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It can be computers or it can be dental health care. The concept is the same. You want many more small-scale revenue points rather than a few very large-scale revenue points.
I love it. And I think that is probably an accurate depiction of most people looking to acquire business. They want lots of customers to come along the journey in that acquisition. Is that another attribute that you're kind of implying?
That's exactly it. A high volume business with low per item revenue is your ideal business. Better to be selling literally 1 million things at $100 a piece and to have $100 million business that way than to be selling one item that's worth $100 million, because if you miss a sale, you have zero revenue.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of people that, in building their business, they feel like they want to be high end, they want to have a higher end product offering. But I think you're probably right. I think from an acquisition standpoint, it's a little more predictable when you got lots of buyers, especially repeat buyers.
Absolutely. There's always opportunities to enhance your product, to upscale your revenue point. So it doesn't always have to be just a $100 widget. You can make several variations of it. Some can sell for $200. Some might sell for $500. But you don't want them selling for $100,000 a piece, because at that stage, you have, if you have a problem in your sales cycle, then it significantly impacts your revenue.
Interesting. Well, this has been awesome. How do you, a lot of business owners, a lot of founders, as they grow and scale their own businesses, they run into those challenge points where they're struggling with a revenue operations problem, where they, to your point, they may be dependent on a referral network, and that kind of hits the ground running. It stops. They hit a wall, and as you have dealt with these kind of problems on your own, I love to ask people, is there someone that you go to? Is there someone that has inspired you to kind of get over those humps and just keep on trucking in your growth and scaling journey? Do you have someone you'd like to give a special shout out today that has inspired you during your times of decision making, pivoting, whatever you had to do to kind of rearrange the cycle of your businesses?
Well, probably my greatest mentor was my dad. Now, he's been gone for a number of years, but he was an Army officer with combat experience. And he taught me something that I will never forget, and that has been very, very important to me all my life. And that is, patience is a virtue. Be patient. It's very easy in the business world to get impatient. Why? Well, because if you're an entrepreneur, you want to make things happen. That's your nature. You want to be building something, creating something, enhancing it, enlarging it. You want to be doing. But the thing is, you have to realize that you're not always in control of your environment. There are things you can control and things you can't control. So focus as an entrepreneur on controlling the things you can and moving forward with them. And be patient about the things you can't control. That has taught me a lot about the evolution of my own business in Canadent, in the dental healthcare world. So, as an acquisition entrepreneur, focus on doing what you can do and can control. That's investing in good technology, investing in the best people in your business, delivering the best service or the best product that you can in the marketplace. If you do those things, the marketplace will realize that you are a leader in the marketplace, and good opportunities will come to you, whether they be acquisition opportunities, which is what I focus on because I'm a growth by acquisition entrepreneur, or whether it's organic growth, because if you do those things, your business will grow and you will be able to expand and you'll get to accomplish what your objectives were. Time is an illusion in the business world. Focus on what you can do and you'll get the rewards that come from focusing on delivering quality in the market.
I love it. Wow. You just loaded that with awesome advice. And you loaded it from the heart, from your dad's advice to you in that patience. And I would imagine over the years, you've heard that all the time, but now that he's been gone, you've probably adapted that message in so many different ways in your own business and probably a lot of your prospective buyers' businesses. And as you've worked your whole operational standpoint in the dental acquisition and even in the banking industry, patience is a key virtue. And I love that you shared all that advice with our audience today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And, patience is a virtue in one other respect. And I'll give you there's a tidbit for negotiating skills about patience as well. It's very easy when you get into a negotiation and things aren't going the way you want them to try to push and try to create the result you want, even if it's not happening for you in the negotiation.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Stop. Pull back. Be patient. Let the other side come to you. There's a law in physics about vacuums. Nature abhors a vacuum. Nature will move to fill a vacuum. The same thing applies in negotiations. Move back, be quiet, let the other side come to you, and almost inevitably, they will come and you will get what you need out of the negotiation.
Love it. Woo! That is some good stuff right there, John. I appreciate that so much. It's very relevant in my position right now with some things I'm doing in my business, and I'm confident it's going to be relevant for other people listening to the podcast. So thank you. Thank you. John, I have really enjoyed our time today. And I know other people listening are going to get some real nuggets out of this. And how do people follow you? Are you available on any kind of social media? Do you spend time on LinkedIn? Where are you at?
My one and only social media platform is LinkedIn. I have spent a number of years building my brand on LinkedIn. People can find me by name. And now there are a number of John McNabbs. There's more of us around than I thought there were. But if you look for me by name, if you marry that up with the name of my company, Canadent, Canadent, Canadent Corporation, you'll find me for sure. My profile is there. It tells all about me, advisory work, acquisition work, some of the writing that I've done on M&A topics over the past year. You'll see copies of articles there on my profile. I hope people enjoy it.
Awesome.
And if they would like to reach out, I am always available and always happy to help.
Love it. Well, those are all going to be listed in the show notes below. So if you want to connect with John, you got questions for John, feel free to reach out to him. He's a wealth of information and a wealth of experience. We are so grateful to have had him today on the podcast. So thank you so much, John, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks so much for being here.
And thank you, Todd.
What did you think of that episode? John's amazing. He is awesome. I love the intense focus he's had on a specific niche. And while I agree with him that a lot of the variables he looks at in dental practices do translate to other industries, get to know your industry. John suggested to every one of you that you should take a look at what other comparable businesses are selling for in your space. Be thinking of your exit. Where do you want to grow your business to in order to exit? How do you want to get there? How can you get there? There's so many things you need to be focusing on as you grow and scale. Really understand to what end are you growing and scaling your business to. These are all key points I want you to be thinking about, and we all can benefit from this conversation. If you can think of somebody else that needs to hear it, please share the episode. This is a great chance to add value to someone else's life. As they're building and growing and scaling, sometimes it's easy to tell the guys that don't have a real destination for the end of their business. When you have a destination, your ability to sell and be acquired or get the exit you're looking for will come to pass in a much easier way if you're focusing on a destination. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you on the next one.